not present the best options for the future of the United States of America. Before we begin, let me characterize my opponent's speech with the following proverb. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I appreciate my opponent's sincere desire to make the life better for her fellow Americans, hoping to improve their education, employment, and healthcare. Sadly, this is not enough. We must actually evaluate whether these programs will be successful in helping all Americans. And when we take a closer look, we will find that the policies cited not only fail but hurt all classes of the economy. Let's begin with education. Although we'd love to help give education to everyone in the nation, social programs have historically failed to do so. Specifically, the centralization of schools via government intervention has increased the gap between the rich and the non-rich. Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman stated in a 1995 Cato Institute article, "The system over time has become more defective as it has become more centralized. We all know the dismal results. Some relatively good government schools in high-income suburbs and communities, very poor government schools in inner cities with high dropout rates, increasing violence, lower performance, and demoralized students and teachers. Remember, we've only had a Department of Education since 1979, and since our education has deteriorated and become more costly. This applies to higher education as well. Whereas my parents were able to go to school for $50 a year, my tuition now costs thousands. This is partially due to student loans, because when you subsidize something, you're going to get more of it. Many people are now going to college more than ever before, including many who are not serious about making an investment towards a career. In turn, because the people are for it, these people are paying for it, and prices continue to go up. Lastly, government involvement in education inherently hurts some of the more important aspects of education. Creative, artistic, and critical thinking are all put on the sidelines by No Child Left Behind, replacing them with tests, tests, and more tests. Although this is a Republican policy, the Democratic mentality of intervention in the educational system justifies it. Now, to discuss specifically Obama's plans for education. My opponent mentioned a student debt overhaul. This isn't the first time Obama has tried to do this. In fact, he's previously signed such a bill into law, and it has failed to achieve its objectives. Steve Lendeman of the People's Voice stated that Obama's student loan overhaul was a scam. Effective July 1st, 2010, it does little to mitigate lenders' ability to rip off borrowers in perpetuity, yet it is called one of the most significant investments in higher education since the GI Bill. He lied. In addition, the plan was paid on the back of taxpayers. A September 2009 Wall Street Journal article has stated that the remaining 20% of the market that is now completely private will likely shrink further as lenders try to comply with regulations Congress created last year. Starting next summer, taxpayers will have to put up roughly $100 billion per year to lend to students. Next, onto the jobs bill. It is immoral for the government to hire people with taxpayers' money because we didn't allocate it ourselves. In a free market, we can choose where all our money goes towards, and if we decide that a good or service is worthwhile, we will pay an individual or group to provide it. This is a way to grow a real economy instead of taking from one group and giving to another without any justification or validation. Moving on to healthcare. First, my opponent concedes that the Republicans say that the Constitution doesn't guarantee people healthcare, and she just continues to not explain why it's constitutional. That's because it isn't. The law is currently being seriously challenged by the Supreme Court. Today's Washington Times stated that there are plenty precedents for avoiding a law like Obamacare. The top justices have invalidated more than 150 federal laws in part or in whole. In fact, it would be unprecedented and extraordinary for it to let stand the unconstitutional aspects of Obamacare. Constitutionality is important because without strict binds over what the government can and cannot do, nearly every policy is justifiable, which will inevitably lead to tyranny. Next, my opponent states that the plan will pay for itself. This claim is made with no warrant. Furthermore, the individual mandate portion forces every citizen to purchase health care, meaning that the taxpayer pays for the plan, not the plan itself. My opponent also states that those who are sick will use the money and those who are not will not. This couldn't be farther from the truth. We're all paying for this plan. Refer back to my point on the mandate. It is also important to note that there's a difference between healthcare and health insurance. This plan provides health insurance, so the money is spent regardless of the patient's sickness. Finally, the Buffett rule. Obama wants to pay down the deficit by taxing the rich. Firstly, we wouldn't have such a deficit if it weren't for all the costly social programs in the first place. Secondly, the rich already pay their fair share. The Constitutional Conservatism blog states that the top 40% pay 84.3% of the taxes, while the bottom 40% pay 6.1% of the taxes. The bigger problem with tax inequality is corporate loopholes, many of which are supported by the Democrats. For example, General Electric pays no tax, and at the same time, a New York Times article states that in January of 2010, President Obama named Jeffrey R. Immelt, General Electric's chief executive, to head the President's Council on Jobs and Competitiveness. This kind of corporatism is what the real problem is. In turn, Warren Buffett is a hypocrite for not offering a part of his huge wealth to pay down the deficit. If he truly cared about the nation, he tried to fix the problems himself instead of coercing others to do so on his behalf. The right path of the country is libertarian one in which social justice rhetoric of the The social justice rhetoric of the Democratic Party is combined with fiscal conservatism of the Republican Party. As our government can violate its citizens can only violate its citizens via a monolithic government, this is a match made in heaven. The parties that best advocate this mindset are the Libertarian Party and the Republican Party, thanks to recent outside movements such as the Tea Party. In conclusion, the good intentions of the Democrats hurt the disadvantaged people they wish to help, and smaller government working towards increased civil liberties holds the best options for our future. Thank you.